Very good talk.
You want the rest of the agenda? Don't take one of those,
Oh, yes.
this is everything? That's it. Where do you want the rest of the agenda?
You know,
No, I had it in email. I didn't have a chance to really like.
I got a hard time. I don't know. I know I don't have any more. Just had them printed out or whatever.
So, late week, do all the,
Yes, but hopefully each of them will make their own decision. It is what it is. What are you gonna suggest? I know. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, truly, trying to get my attention. And I think that says something because they're in the back. I made the connection also. And they also, we need to recognize that and that should count for a lot. And it should be possible to not bring it up. This is a pretty big thing. Not into disagreeing just for the sake of. Which I found that, I'm like, I probably should have known that as an elected official, that this was the week, but I learned that from your page yesterday, and it does add another layer, and it bears repeating to people, and how many people do know that.
Two different ones.
Huh?
I don't see why not.
They've done a better job than the park district. But to what end? If it's not added, it's not actually added. It turns into your ordinances. And they say that they're precedents.
Yeah, I wanted it to be up front.
Okay.
I should have said that.
That's okay. I'll look for the back.
No. I'm okay with him since he switched parties.
Greetings and good evening. Welcome to Clarendon Township. How's everybody? Got some opinions out there. Okay, let's all stand for the pledge.
Right here. Oh, there's one there too.
I pledge allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
My notes. Here somewhere. Sorry, folks, bear with me for a moment. Thank you, Chris. All right, very good. We are gonna take, this is an HDAC meeting, we are gonna take roll call, make sure we make a quorum. We need 12 members. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown will call the municipality. If that's you, then please state your name and title, okay? Mr. Brown?
All right, Auburn Township,
PJ Kavanaugh, Chairman.
Bainbridge Township,
Michael Bates, trustee.
Burton Township,
Dan Whiting, chairman.
Chardon Township, Michael Brown, Chester Township,
Craig Richter, chairman.
Clarendon Township,
Jonathan Tiber, trustee.
Hamden Township,
Keith McClintock, vice chairman, alternate.
Huntsburg Township,
Jason Sutter, vice chairman.
Middlefield Township,
Paul Porter, trustee.
Montville Township, Munson Township,
Jim McCaskey, trustee.
Newberry Township, Parkman Township,
Joyce Peters, chairman.
Russell Township,
Jim Mueller, trustee.
Thompson Township,
Erwin Leffel, chairman.
Troy Township,
Sharon Sims, trustee.
Village of South Russell,
Bill Coombs.
Aquila Village,
Chris Lushef, council president.
Village of Middlefield, Village of Burton,
Bruce Dennis, mayor.
City of Chardon,
Chris Graw, mayor.
County Commissioner,
Not here.
He is, he was.
He's not the voting member.
okay.
He had to, I don't think he's here.
He
had to
wasn't the
leave.
voting member, Tim Lennon is.
Exactly.
All right, we have 18.
18 out of 22. This county is very responsible when it comes to attendance like this. All right, so I call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. First order of business, I welcome a motion to approve the HDAC meeting minutes of September 14th, 2022. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Jim McCaskey, second.
Second.
Chris Lushef. Discussion? All right, we have a motion before us to approve the minutes of September 14th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Hearing nothing, motion passes. All right, so this is a Geauga County Public Health District Advisory Council meeting. I'm Jonathan Tiber, chairman of this council. Mr. Michael Brown, to my right, is secretary of the same. I want to thank the council, my colleagues, for your service in this regard. Oftentimes, you know, we like to call ourselves public servants, but as trustees and councilmen, most of us get compensated. So to really be a public servant, you go above and beyond, and you do things like this, right? So thank you for that. You represent, in particular, your individual municipality. I want to thank Geauga Public Health Administrator Adam Lickey and Commissioner Dr. Cameron for hosting this meeting. Before we get started on our purpose, I am going to yield up to 10 minutes of time to current board member Carolyn Brakey for an update from the board, the current board, and then followed by Adam Lickey, GPH Administrator, for an administrative update. All right, Ms. Carolyn Brakey,
Mister.
you got about 10 minutes.
Actually, Jonathan, I've got to do a little intro.
Okay, all right. Mr. Roman, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Lynn Roman. Earlier tonight, the Geauga Board of Health unanimously agreed to take a difficult and critical step that's going to help the Geauga Public Health Department improve and streamline the services that we provide. It'll also mean significant cost savings to our residents and hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, now and for the years in the future. This agreement is an innovative solution to addressing the increasing cost of public health services and consistent reduction of public funding. We appreciate the opportunity to describe this step to go forward. Carolyn's going to take it from here.
Our board unanimously voted to enter into a cross-jurisdictional agreement with the Lake County General Health District to serve as a staffing agency for Geauga Public Health. From a broad standpoint, the agreement will meet our goal to maintain control of health services in our county in a financially responsible manner. For example, the Board of Health will remain in place and will continue to control our programs and our services. We'll continue to answer to Geauga residents. Under this agreement, we estimate we'll save Geauga residents between $350,000 and $600,000 a year, every year, in health services costs. We'll continue to maintain our vehicles, our offices, our website, and our identity. Vital statistics will continue to be overseen by Geauga Public Health employees who have institutional knowledge and are best equipped to handle the tight controls the state places on these confidential records. Geauga residents will continue to receive the same services and go to the same places to get those services. None of that's going to change. I'd like to walk you through some of the important details of this agreement. The agreement will begin on April 3rd and will continue for 5 years. The agreement can be terminated upon mutual agreement of the parties, or either party can unilaterally terminate the agreement with at least 2 years' notice. The Geauga Board of Health will remain in control and will continue to set policies and evaluate programs and services. Adam Lickey will continue to serve as our administrator. The combined populations of our two counties will open the way to applying for larger grants unavailable to Geauga on its own. Possible advantages there include gaining access to additional programs such as outreach services because of increased access to grant funding sources, and cutting the cost of public health services to Geauga residents by funding some current programs through qualifying grants. The accreditation of the health district by the Public Health Accreditation Board will be, and the preparation of the community needs assessment will be more efficient. As you may be aware, accreditation is an unfunded mandate of Ohio law. We'll be able to share specialty staff, such as in the area of data analysis, accreditation, community needs assessment, emergency preparedness, finance, and grant writing. Both counties would benefit from increased coordination for emergency response and public health emergencies. A larger pool of employees will also ease GPH's burden of contingency planning. GPH will still issue its own permits, maintain its own bank accounts, and those in conducting inspections will be working on behalf of and at the direction of the GPH Board of Health. Lake is ready, willing, and fully capable of serving as our staffing agency. Additionally, we have a track record of success working with Lake. For the past year and a half, our health administrator, Adam Lickey, has been a contract employee from Lake, and our environmental health director, Dan Lark, has been a contract employee from Lake for over a year as well. Our WIC program, which safeguards the health of low-income women, infants, and children up to age 5, has been overseen by our partners in Lake since 2016. However, we know that some of the changes this agreement brings are painful. 17 Geauga Health employees will be laid off as of March 31st. They will be able to apply with Lake to supply those staffing services, but of course, no one is guaranteed a position. We are planning to provide severance, and we'll go over these important details with each of our employees. I know the past few months have been really stressful for our employees, and they weren't sure what would happen here. We have worked diligently to find the best solution for our county, but I'm sure the employees would have preferred a quicker timeline over months of uncertainty. As many of you know, we face financial challenges that demand dramatic change. In our 2023 budget, we faced a $35,000 shortfall. The forecasts are that annual deficits are likely to increase as the cost of providing services and our staffing costs also increase. In our 2024 budget, which Adam is about to present, we are facing a shortfall of over $500,000. We have a fiduciary duty to address this now. We have explored both how to raise more money and how to cut costs. On the money raising side, we examined our 3 revenue sources: money from residents through the levy, money from the permits and fees we collect, and money from grants we apply for. We face a levy renewal this year, and we want to consider every option before increasing the cost of our current levy. Assessing already cash-strapped townships, villages, and cities for the increased costs did not appear to be a viable and responsible decision. And increasing fees, which are set by statutory formula, is not really an option. As we previously said, though, increasing revenue from grants looks like a promising path forward under this agreement. On the revenue saving side, we face cutting services or an agreement like this with a trusted service provider that makes Geauga Public Health more efficient with no service cuts or changes for Geauga residents. The agreement with Lake is the most financially responsible option, and it also maintains control of our health services and puts the residents we all serve first. But we want to emphasize that we didn't take this step before doing exhaustive homework. Since November, board members began independently educating themselves about our situation, the challenges we face, and the opportunities we might have. We studied our current organizational structure, the services we provide, the cost of those services, and the feasible options that are available immediately. We reached out to the Ohio Department of Health and health departments in Trumbull, Portage, Summit, Ashtabula, and Lake County. For a variety of reasons, it became apparent that local health departments we talked with were not viable options as partners. The obvious partner for us is the Lake County General Health District. As you may be aware, the Association of Ohio Health Commissioners in 2012 issued a report called Public Health Futures, and that described how Ohio's 125 health districts could explore regionalization across jurisdictions to enhance the quality and ensure the value of health services. The Ohio Department of Health fully supports exploring these options. Regionalization of various services has been a long discussed subject here in Northeast Ohio. The difference here is we're doing a unique approach that retains all of regionalism's benefits with none of its trappings. Our staffing agreement with Lake will allow us to enjoy significant cost savings while leaving our policies, our presence, and our power untouched and distinctly Geauga. And we know our residents will be better for it. That's all I have.
All right, anybody have any HDAC members have any questions? Mr. Frankie? No questions? Yes, go ahead. So state your name first, then where you're from.
Dan Whiting, Burton Township. Do you see any downfalls of merging with Lake County?
So first of all, I would point out that this is not a merger. This is only a cooperative agreement, and we're just making Lake a staffing service for Geauga. This is not a full merger. That's something we considered, but ultimately dismissed because we feel that the values of our counties are too different to completely merge these health districts into one. So are there any disadvantages? I'd say the number one is that we have to lay off almost all of our employees. And so that's something that was certainly heavy on my heart, and I think our other board members as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mueller, your name and your municipality, please.
Yeah, Jim Mueller, I'm with Russell Township. Earlier this evening, I made a little speech. Number one, Geauga County, as we all know, is either the first or second most wealthy county in Ohio. And all of a sudden, we're being told that we can't have our own health department anymore. Things are tough And, they're already down $600,000. But if you divide that between all of the various townships, that's $30,000. I know that you won't enjoy getting that bill for the first year, but it would give us a chance to maintain our own health department. And there's nothing wrong with what we have. We have one of the healthiest counties in Ohio. As a matter of fact, I think the last time I heard, we were the healthiest, based on the health departments around the state. So why would you walk away when you're doing something that seems to be very right?
Do you have a question for
And you-
Mrs. Brackey?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, I mean, I can respond to it, however, which is, we're not walking away from our health department, we're keeping our health department.
No, you're
We're
laying
just
off
staffing
17
it
people.
differently than we were before. And so there's, I think for the average person coming to the health department, they will not notice a difference. And I personally feel that assessing the townships should only be done as a last resort. In this case, we found a way to operate the health department more efficiently, still offering the same services that people have come to expect. And so if there's an opportunity to save money without cutting services, I think it would break our fiduciary duty to not explore that option.
Thank you. Mayor Spanos, your name and your municipality.
Ruth Spanos, the mayor of the Village of Burton. Was there any consideration given to protecting the employees in some way and perhaps offering them a position with this new setup? It's, I mean, I understand it's that's universally a really easy way to cut your budget is to just get new employees. And that kind of sounds like what we're doing here. And did you also consider, since this is such a big step, perhaps waiting until after like this meeting and perhaps asking the townships and the villages and the residents if this is something that they prioritize saving money versus having perhaps employees that live in Geauga lose their jobs?
Yeah, so as far as employees, I will say that a representative from Lake County Health District will be here tomorrow to hand out applications to our current employees to apply for those open staffing positions. And my hope is many of them decide to come along with this for this journey. So there is an opportunity for them to staff this same department, but it will just be, they'll be Lake employees instead of Geauga Public Health employees.
Will they get seniority?
I believe so, but that, I'm not the right person to ask that question of.
So you don't know?
I believe that is correct, but I don't want to make a legal representation that I'm not sure about. But I can get back to you on how those issues would work. And as far as why didn't the board come to HDAC earlier, I would say that there's been no shortage of difficult decisions that the board has had to make in this past year plus, and none of those decisions had a statutory obligation to contact HDAC, and that includes this one. And like many issues before it, the board is merely exercising its powers in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and our own bylaws.
PJ, name and municipality.
Yeah, PJ Kavanaugh, Auburn Township. One thing that doesn't get mentioned very often at these meetings is a lot of the costs, a lot of the expenses of this department goes to the eastern part of the county and the Amish community, which really doesn't have a whole lot in common with, say, Concord Township. Are there going to be any considerations in training, staffing to meet that demand?
That's not something that I was aware of, but I can get back to you on the different needs of the county and how the staffing may apply to that.
We have an HDAC member in the back there.
Yes, Keith McClintock, Camden Township. Did the board do any sample surveys of a portion of the 90,000 residents in the county to see what the perception of this change would be on their likelihood to vote for or against the levy that you mentioned is up this year?
We have not. I mean, I would just say as a personal Geauga resident, I see how many of the levies go on the ballot, and I see, road levies that fail. If you're parks, I think it's going to pass, but otherwise I certainly wouldn't bet on it. But but no, I mean, we didn't take any sort of formal survey.
Yes.
Craig Richter, Chester Township. Are you gonna staff the same amount of people, so Lake County's gonna staff it with 17 people?
No. There will be a reduction in the number of employees, and some of that is shared employees. For example, we will be sharing the health commissioner, we will be sharing Adam Lickey. There's, particularly the upper management, those positions will be more shared positions. And I don't know the exact number of full-time employees, one versus the other, but there is a reduction in the number of staff.
I want to make a point that as of 3 days ago, I saw this 40-page document that's the contract for the first time. I know there were some discussions, but frankly, I felt like the United States Navy at Pearl Harbor when Tojo arrived. They basically brought this up with 2 days of notice. I don't know about all of you, but I don't think any of you had any of this information a week ago even. And now it's supposedly a fait accompli. And we, the people that met at 4 o'clock begged them to hold off on it. And there were several of you here and said, can't you give us another month? And they basically rammed it through.
Is there any other questions?
Can I
from-
just reply to that?
Sure.
Quickly? I will say that, I mean, I was looking at edits on this contract this past weekend. This contract was still being negotiated, and so it went on the street. I wanted to make sure we had 24 hours for people to review it before the agreement, before the meeting, but it was being negotiated and fine-tuned up to the very end.
Any other questions from HDAC members?
So, if I may, you were negotiating?
I was not negotiating. I looked at the contract.
So you looked at the contract, and other members of the board were involved in the negotiations?
No members of the board were directly involved in the negotiations.
They have outside counsel, I believe. Right?
We, outside counsel and also the prosecutor's office.
Is there anything from the screening committee?
PJ?
Specific, PJ Kavanaugh again from Auburn, specifically where do you anticipate the cuts in staffing to be?
I don't have the staffing chart in front of me, but as I mentioned before, it's going to be shared employees with Lake County is essentially where this change in staffing occurs.
Okay. Ms. Brinke, thank you. Thank you, HDAC. We will now yield the floor to Mr. Adam Lickey, Administrator DPH, for administrative update.
And PJ, it's upper level management.
Mostly upper level.
It's administration. So I'm going to admit the budget you're about to see doesn't have a lot of weight after the decision the board made tonight. So it'll have to be reworked and then go to the budget commission on there. I apologize, I'm like right your way here.
It doesn't matter what I say.
One thing we always work on is just, I usually guys give you some words, some quotes beforehand, and one of the ones I like is, always stand on principle, even if you stand alone. These words are generally what we do here at GPH across the board. I've seen the board do that same mentality, and we always try to make sure everything that we do passes the test for the public. Is it good for the public? Is it cost efficient for the public? And is it the right thing to do for the public? Let's move forward with that. Also, just in general with the Geauga Public Health Department, people have helped us immensely throughout the year. Obviously, the Board of Health, Dr. Jeffrey Cameron, who's in the back, Health Commissioner, Geauga County Commissioners, Mr. Levy, Mr. Dvorak, and Mr. Scolari, Jim Flays, Chuck Walder, and Frank Antonucci as well, helping us out with a number of things. This is I hope everybody can see it. This is the budget. This was derived using, the assumption was Lake was actually done with their contract in June, so the Board of Health had to hire their own environmental health director and administrator or full-time health commissioner. So this was actually derived using that. It also does not have any additional revenue from for sale of property. So for sale of property was the program that the board ended back in June of last year. We're working into the operation and maintenance program called O&M. O&M is required by the state, and we did talk to Ohio Department of Health numerous times about keeping our for sale of property program we have now and just modifying a little bit? And the answer was no, it did not meet the requirement as we had it, and we had to look towards O&M. The operation and maintenance program, the expectation is by June of this year, we'll have what they're called NPDS systems up and running, and have that portion of O&M going, about 2,000 systems we have to inspect. And then also in 2024, which is this, it'll have all of those dollars in there, as well as some additional non-NPDS systems as well. Dan Lark and I have been talking about what we think is doable with the staff. For those that don't know, Geauga County has the most or second most septic systems in any county in Ohio. When we look at that as an example, when a lot of counties may have 10,000, 8,000, 12,000, it may take 7 to 10 years to implement operation and maintenance due to staffing requirements. We have between 30 and 40,000 systems in this county. So when you look at operation and maintenance, you're talking about a drastically long plan to put this into place and get the revenue fully functional. The other reality is, what we don't want to do is dive in too fast and have the issue that came up with for sale property where we're behind on day one, and then we have people 5 and 6 years behind in the queue. Also in here is, I'm actually going to jump to the next one just so you guys can see what the differences are. Also in here is, obviously I said, the reduction of the for sale property program, the initiation of the operation and maintenance program at the levels I mentioned. The additional legal expense we've had for records request is in here, so we have that built in the budget as well, our general fund. And then also include the salaries for the health commissioner / administrator and environmental health director, because that was included as an expectation of what the board had to do in June of this year that would have rolled into 2024 of next year. And then that is it. One thing I did want to hit on that I think most of you probably heard about is the wells in Parkman. So we are at 4 wells now that we have drilled in Parkman. We're moving into, hopefully at the end of this week, having this week or middle of next week, all the rest of the wells drilled. And then we're going to expand that service out. We have about 16 total households that potentially would qualify with Ohio EPA to have those drilled. We have 4 that have been drilled now. We have 2 more that are still to go, so it's about 6 total. And then we'll try to go into additional ones as well. We're in constant communication with Ohio EPA to try to get additional funding for that. For those that don't know, there's some salt contamination. Not going to say where it came from. Joyce can yell it out for me. There's some possible alleged salt contamination, probably the way to say this. Alleged salt contamination. And so we've been drilling those wells. It should have been done a little bit earlier, but we ran into some unfortunate weathers you probably all have experienced since about January. We also have a couple members of, I think it's the Senate coming out on Friday? Yes. The Senate coming out on Friday to Parkman to get a tour of some of the new wells and to see how that's going and bring some more light to it, because we're also still pushing for the homeowners that had the well issue. One of them, who I'm in constant contact with, has replaced water heaters yearly, has replaced pipes every year or 2 years, and try to get some funding for that to repair some of that or replace some of it with documentation, obviously, as necessary. Those have been 2 of the really big things for us. Mostly Operation Maintenance is big, but obviously the Parkman well. And I want to say, when Joyce and I talked, it was 5, 6, 7 years ago is when I was first brought up, and it was kind of brushed out. And thanks to Mike Deerfield and the trustees of Parkman and our partnership, we were able to do most of that and get it going, make at least Mr. Deerfield happy. That's the goal. And then expand it out to other homeowners as well. Some of the levels in salt were so significantly higher, they said it was actually rusting out hot water tanks, which you can imagine how much salt that takes to rust out a hot water tank in a year, sir.
And again, it proves, as we talked about before, it proves how important horses are. Because from what I read, it was the horses that wouldn't drink the water that got this all going.
That was in the news article. Mr. Deerfield obviously had his systems where he was replacing them so consistently that obviously you don't replace a water heater yearly, you don't replace pipes yearly. And when that was determined, he did his tests on his own, found a high salt level, chloride bromide level. And then through that, it got further and further and further. And then we got to Ohio EPA, the governor's office, and things of that nature, and actually got the funding, $300,000 up front, or sorry, $300,000 to fix those wells, with some possible additional fundage to fix the rest of them. Within reason. I would say within reason, because I'm not the ultimate.
We have to find funding because they're
Yes.
going much deeper than they anticipated,
Right.
and there's more.
And this has been, for those that have been to the public Board of Health meetings, there's another community well, and I can't remember who it was that came up to us, They have a community well that actually is having some issues as well. We're trying to find them funding as well. Generally, community wells are private owned or public owned. This is a privately owned community well, which makes it very tough to find government funding because it's a private owned well. We're trying to do that as well. So to help them out because it's incredibly expensive. And then obviously with the Parkman wells, we actually found the first aquifer at some level has salt contamination to it. The second aquifer had such higher iron levels we had to go down to the Berea aquifer, which is 300 feet. The original estimation was we were only going down to the second aquifer, but due to the high iron content, the Ohio EPA agreed to let us drill down to the Berea aquifer, test that water, which came back pretty much crystal clear, and then go forward with that. And that was really one of the big successes over the past year was helping Joyce out and Mike Deerfield. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was, for the little Parkman, I think it was great. Yeah, it helped. Besides that, I also will say in the budget, we obviously have buffers built in, small buffers for different things. I've talked to many of you before. Obviously, if someone leaves or someone comes, those differences in time can obviously decrease the expenses or increase the expenses. Operation and maintenance, as mentioned by the Board of Health, we will have to increase staff for operation and maintenance. In Geauga, it's a monumental undertaking to get that going. The other thing we're trying to make sure we do, and John, how am I on time? I don't want to kill you here.
You got 2 minutes.
Okay. The other thing with operation and maintenance we're trying to do is, so operation and maintenance from a small government guy is really annoying because I have to prove to you every year I pump my system or something equivalency, or every 5 years I've got to prove something to you. So we're trying to make that as cost efficient as possible by having outside contractors able to do a lot of that. Our staff go and take some of the samples, so it's a third-party independent testing, so no one's pouring clean water out of their tap into a bottle and going, here, it's crystal clean water, we're good. We've also maintained the fees as one of the lowest in the area, which I think will be helpful for the residents, because obviously no one wants to get hit with another $100, $200 fee every single year. And then on top of that, we're really looking at how do we help the Amish with this as well, because I do understand that the Amish is a huge chunk of the population. We also have some very unique things with them, with different clinics and whatnot, and with how we handle them with septics and other things, because we do get some, air pumps as an example. We're actually bidding out a project to help someone, a low-income person right now, and they need an air pump. Well, an air pump is different than a regular septic system, which means to be bid out separately, which means to be handled separately. So those are things that probably anywhere else you're never going to experience. You're not going to have someone go, I want an air pump, I don't want anything electronic. So those types of things we've learned over time, we've gotten qualified with them over time, and we work with them. Not saying I'm their best friend, I'm never going to say that, but we try to work with them as much as we can to repair systems, not replace them, to extend the life of systems, and obviously wells. Also, we just did a presentation on wells with Ohio EPA and Soils and Water at the library a week or two ago. Try to extend the life of wells, because obviously a lot of people mentioned they never have tested their wells, they never even thought about testing their wells. Now with East Palestine, Ohio, they're going, I should probably test my wells once in a while. And so we're trying to help them with that as well in any way that we can. With that, I'll give Mr. Tiber my 18.5 seconds.
It's great timekeeping for the timekeeper.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any questions from HDAC members relevant to this administrative update? No?
I think most of you have my cell phone. You can always call or text or come in here and just give me a holler. I'm happy to take you out to lunch or something to answer any questions you got, same as usual.
He enjoys calls after 10 p.m.
I do.
Okay.
My wife's like, is that Jonathan again? I'm like, he's wearing khakis.
Don't encourage him. You don't have to laugh at it. All right. So now, for the first order of business, we are, I want to say first of all, per Ohio Revised Code, this council exists. Code 3709.03A. This council is made up of one elected official from every municipality in the county. How many municipalities are there? There's 21, plus somebody from the commission. So there's 22 members. The purpose of this meeting is for the council to elect a new council chairperson, of which I am the chairperson now, and a council secretary, of which Mr. Brown is the secretary currently, to fill a board, and to fill a board seat that is being made open due to the 5-year term limit of this seat. Mr. Richard Apriano currently fills this seat. Other than being a resident of our fine county, there are no other qualifications necessary to fill the GPH board seat. Our first order of business is for this council to elect a board chairperson for next year. So I will say that the term the new chairperson's term will begin immediately at the adjournment of this meeting and conclude, term out, at the adjournment of next March annual meeting, okay? So with that, I'd like to ask the council if there's any interest for any council people to be chair. If so, please stand up, state your name, and
They're all stepping back.
They're all sinking lower.
And Jonathan, we're trying to meet quarterly as well, the health department and the HDAC, so if you're that person, I need to try to meet with me once a quarter.
Okay, I like that.
Come on, folks. Think of the prestige.
I am not running again.
Chris Alusha, Full Village.
Okay, Mr. Chris Alusha from Aquila Village has expressed interest in running for chair. Is there any others? No others? Thank you, Mr. Alusha, for your interest. With that said, I will entertain a motion to elect Mr. Alusha to HDAC chair.
So moved.
Second,
Did you get both of them?
No.
Name and municipality?
Joyce Peters, Parkland Township.
Jim Muir had the second.
Jim Mueller. Okay, is there any discussion? All right, all in favor of Mr. Alusha, to elect Mr. Alusha as chair of this council, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing nothing, motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next, HDAC secretary. Is there any interest from any council people? Somebody near me is hoping that there is.
Well, I'd be willing to do it again if, with
Okay.
Chris being the president.
Okay, very good.
Make a motion to nominate Mike Brown.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Whiting? Burton? Any discussion? We have a motion to re-elect Mr. Brown as Secretary of HDAC. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. If somebody would have, I could have rubbed him for the next year. Okay. All right, motion carries. All right, thank you both of you. Appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it, right? Okay, per Ohio Revised Code 37903B, this council has a screening committee made up of 5 members of the full council. The screening committee met last Wednesday evening at 7:00 p.m. to interview each candidate. The purpose of the screening committee, according to the Ohio Revised Code, is to interview and recommend a candidate to the full advisory council. That will happen just prior to the vote. The schedule allotted interview time was 20 minutes per candidate. The 2023 screening committee members are up here. Myself, Mr. Brown, Mr. Alusha, Mrs. Peters, and Mayor Coons. I appreciate all of your time and effort in doing this. It's a tough job. It could be a tough job because it's oftentimes a tough vote. So I appreciate it. One candidate, Dr. Evan Morse, withdrew his name just prior to the interviews, just a couple hours prior to the interviews. All right, he told me, he said, I'm just very sorry, Mr. Tiber. I made the great mistake of sending you my letter of intent and my resume prior to sharing the information with my wife and daughter. So he's out. That's just what does it. Okay. So here's how this is going to work. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to present himself. Okay, 3 minutes. Prior to the presentation, immediately prior, the HDAC members, and HDAC members only, I will allow about 5 minutes of questions from HDAC members to each candidate. Make sense? Everybody understand? Okay. After that, we will have public comment. All right, and the public comment, I'll explain the rules of that as well once we get there. After that, we will deliberate in front of the public, the council, okay, to discuss the candidates. I want the full council to know as much as the screening council, or the screening committee knows. Everybody understand? So you could ask us questions. With that said, the order has been chosen. I want to thank Mr. Hendrickson, Mr. Perano, and Mr. Glia for your sense of duty and interest in serving the people of our county, first of all, okay? And I want you to please note that if you are not appointed, it is not because of lack of professionality, competence, sense of duty, or character. For these traits, you all possess well, okay? With that said, Mr. Hendrickson, the floor is yours for 3 minutes. Please, yes.
Jonathan, did you want the other candidates in here?
Yeah, this is a public meeting, and I don't know if it's right to exclude any member of the public.
So I want to thank you all for this opportunity. We used to live in Shaker Heights. We've been at the corner of Bell and Lucky Bell for about 4 years now. We've redone that about 10-acre plot. My wife is a pediatrician. I'm a retired reconstructive surgical clinic. And I think we all have a sense of the future, having this meeting that I wasn't at earlier, this discussion now. It's going to be challenging times. My whole point is service, my service to the people, the citizens of Geauga County. I reviewed the 2010 and then more recent past 5-6 years of the annual reports of Geauga Board of Health and also the UH and Geauga Board of Health. And it really struck me the incredibly hard work that the people are doing. But immediately 2 things came up, which we discussed before. I've been trying to work with the contacts at Auburn Career Center to develop people that will fill these jobs that are needed in the sewage and water inspection. There are a tremendous shortage of inspectors. And then reviewing the health data. Yes, Geauga's number 3 in Ohio in overall health. We're number 6 in health factors. The number 1 cause of death in our county is cancer. What struck me immediately, and we talked about this, and it's an incredible resource, the National Cancer Institute Physician Data Query. It has a patient side and a health professional side, alphabetic, all the cancers listed. Is constantly updated. It's an excellent resource, and somehow to get that connected into our website, that we can have that and in a sense preach that out to the citizens, the people of Geauga, as a place to go to find good, reliable information that will help them and their families in battling whatever cancer. Outside of that, again, I go back to the point that the earlier discussion, really you get a sense, and not just in Geauga, but across the world, that there are difficult times ahead for us. And again, my whole idea, as I've done in my practice, is think beforehand to prevent these problems. And if you are in a situation, I've had this happen in surgeries, been called in to help. If you are in a situation that's bad, figure out the best way to get that solved for that particular patient at that time and also in the future. Questions?
Any questions from council?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wheeler.
We had an instance, as you know, earlier this evening where virtually several people who were on this council who had urged the board to hold off for a month this contract. My question of you is, if you were on the board and you were requested by as many people as there were there to hold off, would you have done that?
Well, I think I can answer this very simply. Did Lake County give up any, have to retire people?
No, that's what we were told. But my point to you is, would you listen to the people here who are electing you now?
That's my answer, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anything else from any else?
Can you go into a little bit more detail about what you were doing with Auburn Career Center?
So Auburn Career Center, one of our friends, their son's going their finishing welding program. So I've contacted them 3 times so far, and I've yet to get someone to actually talk to. But the whole point being, we have as a lot of people do in Geauga, we have a septic system. We have 2 wells, one for the barn, one for the house. And inspections are behind, I think, at least 2 years. And there's a shortage of inspectors. I think there's only 2 left. So my idea and I talked to Melanie Kilmer, our friend, and her husband, who to contact over there. I've contacted them. So you all know of Auburn Career Center. So the idea being, do they have a program, or would they be willing to develop a program for these inspectors for Geauga County, in particular with this transition from our current program to the O&M program? And I've read some of the O&M program. I've not read the whole thing, but this will be dumb to say, but there are changes. And as in context, my father, first career is Air Force pilot. He's an engineer. I'm familiar, not with everything, but he was a chief engineer for Fairfax County, Virginia. I'm familiar with, and I've learned sometimes the hard way, I'm familiar with some of these problems, some of these concerns. And the key thing is you have to do things properly. You have to do things perfectly. You know, just like a surgeon, you don't do things half-assed. You go in there knowing how it's going to turn out at least the day before that you show up for that surgery. And the same concept or principles carried on to this, to make sure that everything is thought of, everything is pre-planned, pre-prevented, so it's carried out perfectly and there are no further problems. It goes back to the idea of prevent, promote, and protect, which is the health board's guiding principles.
Any other questions or questions that any of the screening members think would be beneficial to ask that they asked at the screening or at the interviews?
And the only other thing I would say is if you come ask me, I'm talking too fast, but the NCI PDQ, I mean, I would prepare for clinics and surgeries at least the day before. And if I knew I was seeing someone who didn't have, you know, I'm not seeing them for the cancer, but they had cancer before, I would tell them and show the information, oftentimes have printed out that section for them. It's an incredible resource. There's too much cancer in this world. There's too much cancer in Geauga, and it's our #1 cause of death. And there are ways that we can address this simply and successfully.
All right. Any other word from the council? Hearing nothing, that concludes your presentation. Questions, answers. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Mr. Frano. I'm gonna have the clock here against my water if you wanna refer to it. I'll start when you start, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. For those of you that attended the special Geauga Public Health Board meeting, I'm glad that you were able to attend. I'm disappointed that you don't think that we did not take your concerns into consideration, but all I can tell you is this board has been very, very proactive. Whenever there is an issue, they have all contributed a lot of time. And this is not just a board that, you know, you meet once a month and you make medical decisions. The other thing I'd like to say is Geauga County is the biggest thing that happens in Geauga County Health Department is we all want clean wells, right? We want clean water. So wells and septics are paramount in that department, probably taking up about 80 to 90% of the work that needs to be done. Now, I mean, I don't want to disagree with the good doctor. I know he's a lot smarter than me, and he is right. Cancer is a serious thing. But I can tell you, you know, after being on this board that, you know, the population health is actually not that important in this in this county. I can also tell you as another example, for instance, Ashtabula has 3 health departments. I believe there are 2 municipalities and 1 township. You know what the 1 health department does? They actually basically serve as a food bank, okay? So each department should be accustomed to what the population is. And the other thing I think we all know is very important is we want to make sure that our Amish are taken care of because that's almost 1/3 of our population. And you know, currently we have a doctor that's an MD. He's a great person on the board. We have a doctor of pharmacy. She is fantastic as well. But I just question, so do we need more medical or do we need people that understand environmental? And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
All right, open up for questions from council members. Mr. Mueller, sorry, sir.
I'm going to ask you the same question, but I already know what the answer is. Earlier this evening, everyone in that room that spoke, and there were 50 or 60 people, and there were several people that are on this council, asked you to hold off and give us another month to review this thing. Because almost everybody in the room had only seen it for a day or two. And you refused to do that. And I'm going to hold you accountable for that. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And you know what? I don't know if you guys, if you looked at my resume, I believe in giving back to the community, and this was a decision that had to be made tonight. We could not hold it off. And those of you that, just got the contract, within a couple, days or whatever, I mean, we just, most of us board members just received that contract, but you just, there's certain things that need to be done, and frankly, waiting a week or waiting a month would actually put more anxiety probably on the existing staff that we have. So we're hoping, I feel bad for the staff, I do, but I hope and pray that, they can apply, and hopefully, most of them will get hired. Now, will all of them? I can't guarantee that, okay? That's the one responsibility that we ceded to Lake General Health District. They're gonna handle the employment situation. We are going to still manage public health and manage health issues in this county. And we're not giving away that responsibility. Adam Lidkey and Dan Lark, I don't know how much you guys, anyone's interacted with him, but I mean, I've gotten nothing but accolades from people in the public that think, there's such a big difference, a big change, because we have competent people at the top, so.
Any other questions? Yes, PJ.
Yeah, PJ Kavanaugh from Auburn. Historically, and I'm going back a ways now, the board in the year that a levy's about to expire or face the voters again, would reach out to townships and ask their opinion on an increase, replacement, a renewal, which would we prefer, should assessments be back on the table. Why didn't that happen this time?
To be honest, PJ, we probably will be coming to you because you're right, our levy is due to expire this year. And we need to probably look at that. And I think, it's not that we go to the townships and ask them how much we can put on the ballot. It's, we look at the financials. We discuss it with our county auditor. He recommends what we can do and what we cannot do. I mean, truthfully, our levy is one of the lowest in the county. It's been in existence for a minimum of 12 years or something like that. I mean, so it's a very low levy, and I'm really surprised. I would think trustees understand that. I mean, is it really easy for you guys to pass road levies and fire levies and police levies?
County levies almost always pass, Rich.
Mr. Sutter.
Jason Sutter, Huntsburg Township. Huntsburg Township actually just did pass a road levy. And I'm gonna tell you.
Good.
Your employees sell your levies. When residents see the workers out on the road,
That's great.
that's how you get them done.
That's good to hear.
I would hope the health district would take a lesson from Huntsburg Township.
Well, I will tell you, when we did have the levy 5 years ago, it did pass overwhelmingly. But with that being said, we as a board want to be fiscally responsible, and we don't want to spend unnecessary money if we don't have to. And we believe that, this agreement that we're entering into, it's not ceding all responsibility to another county. We are still going to be in control. The only thing the only thing that we are transitioning is the employees, which are under contract. And frankly,
How does that look to the voters to not have your own people in your own county employed by the county?
to be honest,
I know that's not on you, that's
Right.
really on Lake County to hire that,
Yeah.
but at the same time,
But to be honest, I don't know how many employees we have that live in Lake County. I don't know if it's a majority or minority, or, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but, you know. But like I said, we feel terrible for the employees, but we have to think about 96,000 residents in this county, and we have to, you know, and we've all, I mean, when we voted, it was a unanimous vote, so I think we're all in agreement that this is the way to move forward.
Mr. McClintock, you had your hand up before the time ran out. What's your question, please?
Just real quick question, Keith McClintock, Hampton Township. Did you personally have a chance to review the entire contract and digest it and ask any questions or concerns you had with your legal counsel?
We were kept informed from legal counsel. We did actually, I think like Mrs. Brakey stated, we did not receive the final contract till like a day or two ago.
But did you personally
So
have a
no.
chance to review it, every word of it, and have a chance to digest it?
I have read it, yes. I've read every word of it. And like I said, the people that worked on it individually were two great board members. For those of you that don't know, Ms. Brakey is a licensed attorney, and our attorney had a big part in it, as well as a prosecutor's office from Lake and Jaga.
With all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Whiting, go ahead with the final question.
Okay, thank you. The fact that you guys are address the situation that we're gonna save a lot of money by not merging, but combining efforts. So how much money do you really need at this point without going to the voters for a new levy? How much money do you need since you saved all this money? How much more money do you want?
Oh, you mean because
Oh,
we
yes,
signed
you
a
did.
contract now?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
I mean, because we're sharing.
We're sharing some
Yep.
services, yes. Hopefully, we project that we're gonna, if we don't do this, we could lose like between 300 to 600,000 a year. So we're projecting that we'll have that savings over the next few years.
Okay.
But the other thing that I think everybody is missing is, you know, even I was talking with my friend here, the doctor, even collaboration, I know it's a bad word, but everything is collaboration. I don't know if you folks remember, there used to be a hospital in Richmond Heights. That closed. Do you know why it closed? Because they couldn't succeed. They couldn't survive because they were too small. And then actually, I think Dr. Mark was even telling me, like, Cleveland Clinic, who is huge, UH Hospital, which is huge, they're experiencing funding issues. And that is the same case with what we wanted to avoid down the road with the health department.
Well, I applaud you for, wanting to save money for the taxpayers and everything, but I don't have a real clear vision at this point what you're gonna want to put on the levy.
Okay, now he's talking about, you said you have a renewal coming up.
Yes, we do.
It's a renewal.
That's
All right, we have to move on.
Is that renewal gonna be enough?
It better be.
Well, we'll let you know when they come up with, after they're evaluating all the finances, talking with the auditor's office and figuring out exactly what we need.
All right, thank you.
Somebody else?
Oh, you'll have a chance to speak when we deliberate, Mr. This for HDAC. No, is there any pressing questions? No? Okay, thank you. This concludes your time, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation and the question and answer. Mr. Glia, come on down. You're the next candidate on
Wheel of Terror.
Mr. Glia,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put the timer right here and start it, and you may refer to it at any time. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Well, Rich had 30 minutes.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Frank Leah. I am running for this position only because I think I can add value to the health district. I sat through the afternoon meeting, and if I was on that board, I would have voted no. Only from the standpoint is, I don't think we should sell out our health board. We need the health board here. We need the employees here. I don't know if you heard, but March 31st, the employees will be gone. They'll have a chance to go to Lake County if they want, but it might be at a lower rate. I think it's important that we all look at what happens when you go to the township trustees and you meet with them and you say, we have a shortfall somewhere in our budget. That would
have been nice.
Yeah, when Bob Weisdack was here, he made it a point about himself to cut the assessment. And he did that over years. And finally got to nothing where he didn't have an assessment anymore. That was very beneficial to me as a trustee in Munson, because that was money that we could spend on something else. I think the most important thing we missed in this opportunity is not getting to the trustees, because they have a say in what goes on in this county. I think 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 board members make the decision that says we're going to make this move. They didn't even entertain the idea of postponing it a month, just so we could have a meeting here with the trustees and figure out what could be done to help make this a better transition if we were ever going to do that. I'm disheartened from the fact that we sat in that meeting for 2 hours and it was a fait accompli, that they were going to do what they wanted to do. And that's a shame. But I think we have a chance to fix that somewhere down the line. They said that we can get out of this contract in 2 years with mutual agreement. I don't know about you, but in every contract I've been involved with, the mutual agreement is a sticking point, because they don't really stick to it. Am I over?
45 seconds.
Oh, boy. I'm very proud to be a Geauga County resident. I've been married to Bernadette for 37 years. We've got 6 wonderful grandkids, and I think it's a great place to live. When I worked on the west side, people said, what's so good about Geauga County? I said, get in your car, come on out and just take a whiff. Nice smell, because that's what's so great about it. Thank you for your time.
All right,
Question?
any questions for Mr. Gliar? Yes.
Jim McCaskey, Munson Township trustee. Frank, what's your biggest trait you're gonna bring to the board?
Well, as you know, I was a trustee for 13 years. I was the auditor for 9 years. I was on this board, I was the president of the HDAC for 9 years, and I was the secretary for 3 years. I think I understand what's going on, and I can add value from the standpoint of how to help going forward now that we're in this new mission of acquisition or merger, or whatever we're going to do with Lake County.
Against the rules.
Is this for council only?
No, I know.
Any other council people have questions for Mr. Gliar?
Yes, Joe.
I'm going to ask you the same question, but I know you just already answered it. Is it if you were sitting at the head of the meeting and there were people in this room saying we don't want this?
That's a clear signal to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a clear signal.
Everybody that's an elected official knows that if it's a close vote, well, maybe you can choose.
Yeah.
But when it's clearly overwhelmingly against you, they will damn well do what the people want.
I agree. I agree.
Any other questions from council members?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be okay if you want to.
Okay. We are going to
Okay.
We're gonna allow for public comment now. So the public comment portion, folks, you know, my rule with doing this is generally you have 1 minute to express your support for a candidate and only your support, without speaking to Geauga Public Health. This is not a Geauga Public Health meeting. This is an HDAC meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? I missed you. Mr. Leffel, did you have a?
No.
Okay. All right.
I'll
Okay.
save it.
All right. So if any member of the public, including HDAC, wants to do express a 1 minute support come on up. Come up and state your name, and you can stand there if you want to, but as long as you're loud enough. State your name and where you're from.
McNeil from Troy Township, and I believe that this was a gross miscarriage of trust by not bringing this matter to this council. I think what took place is we set out on a ocean voyage, had trouble. We had a lifeboat and a life preserver. We jumped out the ship with a life preserver, letting the lifeboat there.
And which candidate would you wish to support?
Pardon me?
Which candidate are you expressing support for, sir?
Mr. Glia.
Mr. Glia? Okay, thank you. Any other?
Who would have made that strategic error in planning, or accountability and responsibility either.
Thank you.
You grossly miscarried today, by the way.
Any other public comment of support? Yes, Mr. Right here.
So Craig Richter, Chester Township. I'm gonna read a letter from my fellow trustee, Ken Radke. Dear fellow HDAC members, please accept this letter acknowledging my support for Richard Perino to continue his service on the Geauga County Public Health Board. I apologize for being out of town and unable to speak in person, so please accept my brief comments. I've been a member of HDAC for a number of years and also recently served as chair for several years. The challenges of Geauga County Public Health Board and the effort of the board puts into address them are not always readily apparent to not only the residents of Geauga County, but also to the many members of HDAC. Your upcoming vote is important to continuing the progress that has been made in what has certainly been some unusual and difficult times. In my dealings with and observations of Rich, I have found him to be dedicated to fulfilling his board duties in a responsible and professional manner. Dealing with COVID-19 and the transition to a new health director, the GPH board has continued to conduct itself with professionalism in the interests of the public. Is my time up?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
It's all right. Thanks.
There was several letters of support for different candidates, mostly for Mr. Perino, and one for Mr. Hendrickson. Is there any other public comment? Yes, Ms. Briggs.
Good evening, Mary Briggs, Geauga County lifetime resident. During my 12 years as Clarendon Township trustee and member of this HDAC board, I am supporting a particular candidate to be appointed to this health board. Frank Glia was president of the Township Association and president of HDAC as a Munson Township trustee. He is the only candidate who has been a township trustee and knowledgeable about the Geauga Public Health Department. I know this man's commitment to the people of Geauga County, his integrity and knowledge makes him the best candidate in my opinion. We are all imperfect souls, and while Frank is no different, he deserves a second chance. Frank can hit the ground running at the time we need him most. He will not be hampered by the learning curve as most new board members would face. I have always thought of him as the epitome of a public servant. He deserves your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Feel free.
Sure.
Oh, hi.
Forget your glasses. Vicki List, Clarendon Township. I'm probably gonna really stick my neck out on here, and I'm gonna ask you to weigh in favor of Rich Perino. He seems to be one of the only candidates that can understand that we are not merging with Lake County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, Joe Rome, Chester Township. I do know Rich, I do know Frank from a long time ago from work, a long time ago.
Not that long.
It seems like forever, and I think all three candidates are very worthy. But I know Rich is dedicated, very much so, to seeing, to have our problems that have gone on, you know, I'm married to Lynn, she won't tell me anything, I had to get the Maple Leaf to find out what's going on with these meetings.
Good job,
I had to
Lynn.
show up some of these meetings to find out. Most of you I've not seen there over the last, number of months. So, I have read that, contract last night. It seems like we're back into a corner, and, we still have our health board. That's not going away. We are still having all our services provided as we should. My only hope is, and I think Lake County will have to hold true to interview these people who already have great experience in our county, and hopefully they'll be rehired in the role. My hat's off to Rich. I hope he stays through the next.
All right, anybody else? No one? All right, there's, if you'll excuse us for a moment, the screening committee needs to step away just for mere moments. Thank you. Watch the court.
Oh, have you? Oh.
Okay, I'm now going to open this up to HDAC members. You could deliberate amongst us, just HDAC members. You can ask the screening committee questions if you want. First of all, is there any questions for the screening committee? Yes?
Keith McClintock, Camden Township, based upon your review and being in interviews with the candidates, did you have a unanimous recommendation?
No, and that's why we had to go over there, because this is, I don't know if this ever happened before, but we have a three-way split. These are three candidates. There's two for Mr. Glia, two for Mr. Hendrickson, and one for Mr. Prano. So we do not have a recommendation for you. So this is going to have to be up to you, and I know all of you, and you are all thinkers. With that said, what's that? Yes.
When we met last week and did our interviews, we were pretty certain. Matter of fact, we were unanimous. And then this bombshell kind of came in, and I'm still in shock how this was handled. I know it's not a merger, but apparently there was enough forethought put into it for the board to schedule a special meeting, try to avoid a large public presence, and approve this contract after at least one of the board members said that they hadn't fully read it. That just does not.
That's not true. That's not true.
Rich, you said you hadn't read it.
I'm sorry, I had read it.
I was sitting right there.
I'm sorry, I did read it.
He said it tonight, that he read the whole contract.
So, obviously they knew this was going to be a testy subject. Geauga County people are very proud people, and we don't like to forego any of our sovereignty to anyone, regardless of who it is. I see this option that they took tonight as being something that you take as a last resort, not as a first option. Apparently Lake County's doing something better than we are. Why don't we investigate that and see what they're doing? I do not see why we go right to this step without coming to us trustees, without going for a levy. This should have been the third option, not the first. And that rubs me the wrong way. To do something of this magnitude in a single meeting without public discourse, if I were to do that in Chariton Township, I would expect to get voted out.
Mr.
That's all I'll say.
Mr. Leffin?
Did the screening committee know about the cooperative agreement before the interview?
No.
They had no idea?
No,
It was
matter of
coming
fact,
down, nothing
we asked
whatsoever.
something towards that end, not specifically, but
Say
no.
that again.
Did we not ask something?
We asked
towards-
Mr. Brano something along those lines, and he
As far as
said
it-
he wasn't aware of anything.
As far as independence,
And Mike, take the meeting aside, you're on the steering committee, who was your recommendation? Let's not go negative, let's go positive.
Wait, you're gonna announce that, aren't you?
we just did, we don't
We
have
basically
one.
said it's a split.
You don't have one.
It's a split.
Do you want, who each
That
member?
also
Go
goes-
ahead, go ahead.
That also goes to say that we've got three very well qualified candidates. I'm not going to throw stones at anybody here. But I think it's my job, I mean, I've been a trustee for 20 years. And what this happened tonight kind of shows you what the difference is between an appointed official and an elected official. Because we are responsible to our voters. And now you take another layer out, and yeah, they say, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know why we're gonna still have a board. I mean, these are gonna be Lake County employees. Who are they reporting to on a day-to-day basis? They're reporting to Lake County employees. So I don't know how much interaction this Board of Health is gonna have on a day-to-day basis, but to say that this is, we're just farming out employment, it's nonsense. And if they didn't realize that that was such, they would have done this at a regularly scheduled meeting in the evening when people could attend.
My overall assessment of the interviews in general, and this was of course before we knew anything like this was actually happening, was that two of the candidates, Mr. Prano and Mr. Hendrickson, they answered our questions specific to the questions and precisely to the questions. I personally felt that Mr. Glia answered all our questions very generally and vaguely. And that was my overall assessment. Now, Mr. Glia spoke some good words up here, and some fine words, sir, but again, during the interview process, I felt his answers were somewhat vague compared to the other two. You guys could speak on that? Yes, Mr. Lucia? Mayor Coontz, yes.
Yeah, Bill Coontz from South Russell. First of all, I met three of these people a week ago, and there's three, and Jonathan, four fine people up here. And on April 12th is the next township dinner. I hope you're all still talking to me. I appreciate that you were able to be here, dark, that you're going to disagree without being disagreeable. And when you go home tonight, I don't think many of us are going to sleep well. And for those of you in the very back who have lost your jobs, or who are staring at Cobra 28 years and pushed out the door, I feel for you, and I think you're a casualty of what's happened here. I can't think of anything worse than a 5-0 board meeting that occurred at 4 o'clock today, 40 pages, never had a chance to read it. It was lousy timing, but you have 5 volunteers who are doing the best they can. Next year, you're going to have a chance to remove somebody if this doesn't work. I'm sticking with Rich. I can't even pronounce his last name, or I'm not going to try. I have not known anything about him until I met with all these people. Dr. Hendrickson is another great guy, and I've known Frank for years. But I think we give Rich a year to do this. Now, this is a 5-year term, but every year, one of those volunteers are up. And if it doesn't work, we got a chance to change it. you know, it'd been nice if we could have had a vote, we could have taken money dedication from the townships and the villages, but this is the way it came down, and they voted 5-0, and I say give Rich and everybody one more year to make it work.
Mr. Lucia?
Yes. You know, I've been following the Board of Health closely for, I believe it was August of 2021 when Tom Quaid was fired, and that was my first meeting, and I've made a majority of these meetings since. And I'm passionate as I've grown to learn about what Geauga Public Health does, what it means to the residents, and what their function needs to be. I think I follow this quite closely. I took the day off work today so I could sit there and print that contract up and go line by line. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a professional at this, you know, but I took the time to get an understanding of this. And I've heard from multiple people that I am known to vehemently disagree with on most things, that I am in complete agreement with on my take of what happened today, and I think that says something. But this is my prepared remarks. I'll be brief. Mr. Perino, whom I like and respect, expressed a desire to see through the cross-jurisdictional agreement as it is known. Quite frankly, with the agreement signed, he accomplished his goal. However, I think Mr. Perino and the rest of the board lost sight of the strong desire for transparency by GPH and the board. That desire or mandate was born out of the frustration of enduring the chaotic Quaid administration's heavy-handed corona protocols, guidance, mandates ad nauseum. It is for that reason that I believe Dr. Hendrickson will be a better fit on the board at this time. The board and its members are not beholden to this council, but we are beholden to the residents of Geauga County, and I have heard from those residents of all backgrounds one common theme, and that is a demand for transparency at the board and the maintenance of autonomy to the extent feasibly possible. If Dr. Hendrickson is appointed, I believe he is ready to put in the time, effort, and research necessary to effectively execute his role. And I want to make clear to him that I and the residents of our great county would expect transparency to inform his decisions to the extent allowable by law. This should also serve as a reminder to the rest of the board, two of whom having been appointed in the last year, that transparency is the only way to continue to repair the trust of the public. Whether the agreement signed today is the best course for Geauga County remains to be seen. But the fact remains the board went about presenting and adopting it in a manner that was not transparent and furthermore failed to see the fault with their action. Therefore, I believe it is time for yet another change, and it is my sincere hope that the addition of Mr. Hendrickson will help to continue the progress this board has made and help them renew their commitment to the residents they serve to be transparent in their goals for the direction of the agency moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russo.
I will only say that this has been a very difficult process to go through. The interviews, they're all excellent people. It was difficult to make a choice at the time. But then today, after the health board meeting, I was so disappointed to know that we have a board that does not engage the stakeholders. Those are the trustees and the community. And as a result, I decided to change my vote to Mr. Gliha.
Okay,
If you want me, I mean, I'm gonna echo what Joyce said. I left the interviews wanting to recommend Rich. Also knowing we had two other very good candidates. I've changed my mind tonight sitting up here after sitting through that Board of Health meeting. I think we need a strong voice on this board that is going to engage the township, is going to keep this on the board. Because I sincerely hope that this agreement is no more than 2 or 3 years. And I mean, it's pretty apparent that's why they had the meeting when they did. They got another meeting scheduled next week. So, I mean, my dad had a saying, you don't pee in my head and tell me it's raining. And I think that's what happened to me today. So Rich, I like you. I respect you. You're a valuable member of our community. You're on our zoning commission. It was very nice to meet Mr. Hendrickson, and I hope you stay involved in the community. I think you have a lot to offer. You're obviously a very intelligent man. But I'm gonna recommend Mr. Glia. I think we need a strong presence on it, because I think our goal should be to regain control of our health department.
Okay, and then, for me, it's mainly, Rich knows how much I like him and respect him. But for me, I just have a hard time, and forgive me if I'm really missing something, board, but I really have a hard time, how come this wasn't foreseen 2 years ago? Or, you know, and if it was, then why not at least ask for a levy? At least ask. And if it wasn't foreseen, then that's just negligence of foresight. So that's what and forgive me if I'm missing something. You know, I like this board, I like everybody on this board. But that's why I'll be voting for Mr. Hendrickson now. Also, concerning Mr. Glia, another reason that I don't, you know, he was found guilty of dereliction of duty from the auditor's office and barred 4 years, I believe, from running for public office. And that's another thing that makes me a little bit, just that history there. I'm not saying that Mr. Glia is a good man, I know that. Yes, Mr. Glia?
I can respond to that.
Yeah, because of what sure.
Yes, I was the auditor for 9 years. I had 30 employees. When you have that many employees, you trust people to do their job. Everything that happened in that 9-year period, we had a trust breakdown. And at that point in time, I didn't run from that problem. I stood there and took it. And I think the county's better for it. I miss the elderly, the veteran, and the Amish coming to see me on a regular basis. I miss that. I'm just disappointed that we had an employee who took it upon himself to not only ruin his career, but mine as well.
Thank you, sir, appreciate that. Any other deliberation from the, yes?
Question for the committee. So I heard you say that you had a candidate when you walked out of the meeting. Will you say who that was initially?
Last week.
Yeah, last week, before this happened.
Is Mr. Prano.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Jonathan, one last question. What are you gonna do if there's a tie?
Yeah. There won't be a tie.
Well, no, seriously, because you should say this, now, I counted I thought roll call said 18, I think that says 19.
22.
No, how many are here?
18 here.
18 are here, so it's a possibility.
No,
So there's 22 members, but there's only 18 members tonight. Okay, so 18 people are gonna vote. What are you gonna do if there's a tie before it happens?
Jonathan, to clarify that, is this a majority required or a plurality?
simple majority.
Simple majority.
So we could have rounds.
Because if it was Robert's rules and there was a chairman, that chairman makes the deciding vote. But you're a board, so I don't know if you've thought about this before it happens.
I honestly have not, to tell you the truth. I have thought about looking forward to Mr. Lushев taking his position over.
I mean, you could see what happens, but you as a board could make one more vote. You could have somebody decide to step out, like the central committee, and then have 2 people run out again, or you could run it again. So just, you probably should have thought about that before, because now we're up against it. We all want to vote. It's time to go.
Yep.
It's 8:30, so.
Yep, I know, me too.
We can see what happens.
We truly did not anticipate being in this position.
It is what it is.
Appreciate that.
Well, we've got attorneys here.
Yeah, well, anyway, let's.
Well, you just give it to you as the chair. You want guys, you want to just give it, if we end up 6-6-6, give it to Jonathan to make.
Does the whole body need to vote on that?
What do you guys want to
What does the
do?
revised code say?
The revised code, it doesn't say anything in the HSAC about.
Not in 3709.
No.
Let's cross that bridge if it happens, but.
Okay, with that said, Mr. Brown is going to call you're going to call the name and municipality. You will say last name. You will say Hendrickson, and say your last name, Rick, nice and loud.
Perrano.
Perrano. It's a beautiful Italian name. All right, and or Glia, okay? Perrano. All right, Hendrickson, Perrano, or Glia. And if you don't want to say Perrano, go ahead and say Rich. We don't know who you're talking about. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Brown.
All right, PJ Kavanaugh, Auburn Township.
Hendrickson.
Michael Bates, Bainbridge Township.
Hendrickson.
Dan Whiting, Burton Township.
Hendrickson.
Michael Brown, Chardon Township, Glia. Craig Richter, Chester Township.
Perrano.
Jonathan Tiber, Clarendon Township.
Hendrickson.
Keith McClintock, Hamden Township.
Hendrickson.
Jason Sutter, Huntsburg Township.
Hendrickson.
Paul Porter, Middlefield Township.
Hendrickson.
Randy Peterson, Mountville, oh, he's not here, I'm sorry. Jim McCaskey, Munson Township.
Gleo.
Joyce Peters, Parkman Township.
Leah,
Jim Mueller, Russell Township.
Galea.
Erwin Leffel, Township, Thompson Township.
You five on the board up there did not make this easy for me, you know that?
I know.
All right?
It wasn't easy for us.
All right, at this point, it's kind of a yes or no.
Yeah, I know. The doctor,
Hendrickson.
yes.
Sharon Sims, Troy Township.
Hendrickson.
Mayor Coons, South Russell.
Perea.
Perrano. Rich, right?
Did you say Rich? Rich.
Chris Aliship, Cola Village.
Henderson.
Ruth Spanos, Village of Burton.
Hendrickson.
Chris Graw, Chardon, City of Chardon.
Glia.
And we don't have a commissioner here.
What about the village of Millville?
Didn't have red here.
Should have 4, 11, and 2.
11, 2, and 5.
Okay. That equals 18? Yeah, we have Mr. Prano with 2 votes, Mr. Glia with 5 votes, Mr. Hendrickson with 2 votes, with 11 votes. Per Ohio Revised Code 3709.02A, a Board of Health term is 5 years from the date appointed. The term of this seat will expire in March of calendar year 2028 and will begin immediately at the adjournment of this meeting. That said, I'd like to give a final word to Councilman Alusha, if he'd like to address the HDAC chairman. If you want to keep it brief, it is late.
Yes.
Would you like to briefly address the council, sir?
You gotta put a time limit on this guy.
50 seconds. I time myself at home. Thank you all. I am privileged and humbled to be chosen to serve our county in such an important position. I will continue to monitor the progress of the board as well as the implementation of the new contract. I would encourage everybody in this room to make an effort to attend a GPH meeting on occasion. I understand this is a big ask and appreciate the enormous time commitments that we all make to our respective communities. GPH is at a critical junction and we must be vigilant as Lake County begins to administer large swaths of our county services. God willing, we will not be in this room together until March of next year. But I will close my remark with a reminder that HDAC is statutorily empowered to call special meetings, recommend policy to the board and health commissioner, and remove board members.
Thank you all for the critical work you do for and on behalf of the people of Jogga County. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. And for the good of the order, is there any word from any council person? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Second? Discussion?
Dan Whiting seconded.
All right, motion adjourned at 8:35.